Happy holidays everyone. 2023 is finally a thing of the past, so of course it's time for my yearly list of my personal favorite films of the year. It's been a really good year for movies. I think I've put together probably my hardest list I've ever done on this channel, but upon a couple of reassessments, I'm feeling pretty good of where everything is at for now. Plus this is just a yearly tradition that's purely for fun, so the rankings don't even matter. It's all just my opinion, and I love getting the chance to talk about good movies whenever I can. For new releases this year, I got to watch 71 movies. It may seem like a lot, but I didn't even get close to watching everything I wanted to, so here's some that I missed before the recording of this video. Also, as always, I love to give a few shoutouts on movies that didn't crack the top 20, but I still wanted to acknowledge simply for the fact that they're still really good movies.
1, 2, 3.
There alien who art in heaven.
So kicking off the first half of my list, I have Asteroid City at number 20. Wes Anderson is back with another vibrant and innovative movie about a space convention in a desert. Some of my favorite bits from him are in here, and there's even some deeper subtext for those who want it, so not only is it another great film from him, but it's also one of his most personal. 19 is Infinity Pool, directed by Brandon Cronenberg. There were a lot of great horror movies in 2023, but Infinity Pool left one of the most unforgettable movie experiences I had all year. The levels of disturbed Brandon Cronenberg reaches here are so chaotic and fun that it's hard to recommend to everyone, but it definitely grew on me over the past couple of months. 18 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, directed by James Gunn. A beautiful closing to the trilogy that's been with me throughout my teenage years. Despite the gap from the last one, Guardians 3 still proves why it's some of the very best of what the MCU has to offer, so it feels good to see it go out on such a wholesome note. 17 is Suzume, directed by Makoto Shinkai, an animated movie that's brimming with so much heart, wonder, and ideas. The story here is as fun as it is beautiful, and it's all elevated with some of the prettiest animation I've seen all year. 16 is May December, directed by Todd Haynes, a twisted and dark film about manipulation and abuse. Almost makes you so uncomfortable to the point where it's unbearable to watch, but it's really the performances that make it all work, and let me tell you, they are incredible. 15 is Passages, directed by Ira Sachs, a heartbreaking romance film that explores the consequences of an unfaithful and selfish partner who can't manage to commit to just one lover. It shows how it truly feels to be disarmed and strung along by love to the point where it does irreversible harm. 14 is Priscilla, directed by Sofia Coppola. This is probably my favorite film that she has ever done up until this point. If there's one thing that she can do without fail, it's give a movie a lush and decorative production design, which works even more so here considering the lavish yet imprisoning marriage Priscilla had to Elvis Presley. 13 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. The first Spider-Verse movie is already one of the best animated movies of the 21st century, so for the sequel to be able to carry the same amount of momentum, I think speaks volumes to the quality of this one, and that chase sequence will always be something to gush about. 12 is Anatomy of a Fall, directed by Justine Triet. This is one of the most engaging and suspenseful courthouse dramas I have ever seen. Certainly one of my favorite screenplays of the entire year, and with editing this good, it makes for some of the most unforgettable scenes of the year. Also, not forget to mention that some of the finest acting is here. Fuck, even the dog is great. Last but not least, at 11 I have Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan. This was the movie to watch in 2023, and for good reason. Every moment of this 3-hour long film carries that immense weight of what it was probably like to live through these events in real time, so that's really a sight to see on its own, but when it's exploring the burden Oppenheimer had to carry after all that, it leaves you with such a sickening feeling that's not easy to shake off. Also, one of the best uses of IMAX narratively. Final round of applause for the first half of the list. Now it's time for the top 10.
If I'm effective, it's because of one simple fact. I don't give a fuck.
Stylistically, I love David Fincher's latest film, The Killer. This is a simple story about a hitman getting even after a job gone wrong. It's a movie that focuses deep into the little details of a person that has done this for so long and has garnered so much experience. Michael Fassbender's character is constantly narrating about the intricacies of his job and even some of the most boring, repetitive stuff he encounters. It's a movie that can effortlessly transition from tense to hilarious, and it's all accompanied by an amazing Smiths soundtrack. The character of the killer feels almost entirely satirical with some of the dialogue he has, and of course his obsession with the Smiths. David Fincher is really showing his more humorous side here, but is still able to put on such an engaging story that I feel can really capitalize on the tense moments it creates. It locks in when it needs to, and with its sound design and creative cinematography, it achieves impressive scenes that feel very satisfying to watch. There's a fight sequence in this movie that is executed so flawlessly, I still haven't gotten over it. I don't think my heart has beaten faster during a scene this year, so that just goes to show what this movie is able to do right.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Ken. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
I can.
I know I'm definitely not the first when I say Barbie exceeded my wildest expectations as to what it could be, but this movie was amazing. Everything about it, from the story to the production design to the fact that it came out alongside Oppenheimer during the summer, created such a perfect environment for this movie to exist in, and it was just a fun time to be at the movies. You really gotta hand it to Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach for creating such a rich story that not only entertained audiences, but had some genuinely strong themes about feminism and self-love. The movie didn't really have to do any of that to be successful, but the fact that it's there makes it so much more special. But yeah, this movie is such a great time. I feel like just about anyone can walk in and find something in it for them. I love that the movie is so self-aware about what it is too. One of the biggest surprises this movie had for me was how great the movie works at coexisting Barbie land and the real world. Breaking that fourth wall was essential in making a lot of this work, and a lot of its best jokes stem from it too, so I'm really glad they did that. Barbie land itself feels so realized too. The effort they put into creating this set only added to the charm this movie had, so I'm really glad they used a lot of practical effects. And of course, all the performances were great. Margot Robbie, America Ferrera, Will Ferrell, they all brought exactly what they needed to, but Ryan Gosling as Ken was something else. Maybe my favorite performance of the whole year. Everything about that character and the way Ryan Gosling delivered those lines made for such an infectious performance that I couldn't get enough of it. Did I mention how great the music is too? This movie has a great soundtrack, which really works well because it has a few outstanding musical numbers. The dance sequence in I'm Just Ken has to be one of the most cathartic experiences I've had in the movies this year.
Listen, if I touch or even jostle this primer too much, it could detonate. I need you to take this, stand 20 yards back. If anything goes wrong, then don't come in unless I tell you to, unless you see fire.
How to Blow Up a Pipeline is a movie I saw earlier in the year, and it's remained in my mind ever since. This movie is making a political statement. No need to state the obvious, but if you're also concerned about the well-being of the earth, then this movie should be right up your alley. It takes real-life events with fictional characters to create this strong story about how a group of activists organized to blow up an oil pipeline in Texas. What really gives it that urgency are the great characters and the scary amount of detail it goes into the bomb building process. I swear, some of these scenes feel illegal to watch, but it added a very tense layer to the movie that is even further upheld by its claustrophobic cinematography. All the characters have their own backstories for being involved in the plan, and with some very brilliant editing, it chooses where to carefully place these moments, so even in the movie's most dire circumstances, it serves as a strong reminder of what they're fighting against. The story holds back no punches to what it's trying to convey, but honestly, good for them. These are all characters that have gone through enough loss because of the government's negligence, so it does a good job at demonstrating how there was no other option in getting the right amount of attention to make a change. The movie can even directly address the immoral dilemmas within the characters. They have their disputes and differences, but they always circle back to their common goal, and the ending is just wow. It went way harder than it needed to, and with a few powerful monologues from Ariella Bearer, you'll truly understand the significance behind a movie like this and be left with nothing but chills.
They gave you my name. Yeah. I'm sorry. Me too.
The John Wick franchise have long led the action genre ever since the first one came out in 2014, and they've constantly been improving on every single one ever since. John Wick 4 delivers more on just about everything. There are more guns, more stunts, more characters, more locations, the movie is longer. It really makes it feel like there's no ceiling to what this movie is able to achieve, and it is just non-stop great action for 3 hours straight. You really can't ask for more than that. Keanu Reeves is well on pushing 60 at this point, and he's still moving at the same pace from when he started, maybe even more so. The dedication here to deliver the best action movie you've ever seen is very real, so I wouldn't just brush it off so easily if it's not your type of thing. The innovation of these movies just keep getting better and better, so while you may think you've seen every way on how to kill a guy, I'm sure they'll keep on surprising you. On top of delivering great action, the story at which everything fits into is so cool. I love how high-end and classy the movie can feel at times, and also with those subtitles they use, it's also fitting. Also, for a movie introducing as many new characters as they did late into the franchise, they were all shockingly great. Rina Sawayama being a standout especially. This franchise totally works for spin-offs, so if anyone should get one first, I think it should be her. And aside from this being an action movie, I think it also deserves more credit for making everything look as good as it does. Every location this movie visits feels like such eye candy. Like, I cannot think of a cooler setting for this movie to take place in, but it makes the best out of all of it. From the scenes at the nightclub with the waterfall to the streets of Paris with the cars, everything is used to its advantage, so it creates more diversity than just the kills. The coolest scene though has to be the overhead dolly shot. Swear to God, that's one of the greatest action sequences I've ever seen in my life, so that alone would have made it on this list, but luckily we have a whole movie to go along with it. This franchise may or may not continue after this, I'm not really sure, but I'm not complaining either way. Either we get this sweet and perfect ending or we get more John Wick movies. I see all of it as a complete win. How does legendary filmmaker Hayao Miyazaki return after a 10-year hiatus and make a final film that's going to wrap up his illustrious career and say goodbye? Of course, that's not the case anymore today, but that was the initial thought for The Boy and the Heron, and I don't think we as fans could have asked for a better send-off. The Boy and the Heron contains a brand new and magical world that feels right in place along some of his most iconic ones. He is fully embracing the idea that death awaits for everyone and that it shouldn't be a sad thing. Forgetting is such a natural part of life, and it's useless clinging onto things that are destined to fade away, so the best thing that you can do is soak up your time while you're here and learn that it's okay to let go, accepting that the world isn't perfect and being okay with it. All of this layered with a beautiful story about a boy trying to reunite with his mother and visuals that can at times resemble an afterlife. It's hard not to sit down and think about how the material connects back to Miyazaki's state of mind. It's very tear-jerking stuff, but then you remember the parakeets and life is good again.
Oh, I was sent down from Washington, D.C. to see about these murders.
See what about him?
See who's doing it.
Killers of the Flower Moon might be Martin Scorsese's most devastating film ever, and that's not an easy statement to make considering he's the same person that made Silence. Here, Martin Scorsese shines a light on the real-life tragedy of the Osage murders during the 1920s with immense detail. From the filming taking place in Oklahoma to the casting of real Osage people and having Osage consultants on set, the material is approached with utmost respect and creates a movie so terrorized by tragedy, you'll understand the urgency behind why this needed to be made. It's not just a story that taints American history, but one that serves as an introduction to the Osage people in general, because this is clearly not something that was taught in American textbooks, so it's important to preserve and not shy away from the horrors committed against them. It's a greed-fueled story that becomes more devastating as the film continues, especially with a central character like Molly Burkhart. She's where the movie's true heart lies, so watching her be betrayed while also trying to save the last remaining family member she has, every single kill here is made to feel more cruel than the last. Of course, Lily Gladstone herself carries a large part of that weight because her performance is phenomenal and easily the most impactful of the entire movie. It's a long watch, but every scene feels necessary in order to reach the climax of the movie. Some things in the third act could have been framed better, but the ending packs such a massive punch and feels just about as appropriate as you can make it. Maybe the best ending of the year, honestly. Just complete immersion from start to finish. Scorsese can never do wrong, so I'm just glad he's finding the passion in these stories and taking the time to give it the full representation it deserves. The Holdovers is one of those special kinds of movies that I feel like aren't being made anymore. It's a simple yet touching comedy about how three distinct people are learning to put up with each other during the Christmas break at school, and it was one of the most comforting stories I've seen in a long time. Immediately, you'll notice the movie's unique production design. From the tighter aspect ratio to the sound design and the lighting, the movie feels like it came straight out of the 70s era it's set in. This look serves a lot in being immersed in the holiday season and feeling snowed in with these three characters, but the more they get to learn about each other, the more wholesome the movie starts becoming. The comedy in this movie is so well done and elevated with some fantastic performances from all the actors. Seriously, some of the best line deliveries of the whole year come from the back and forths between Paul and Angus. It's a movie that explores all these characters on a deeply human level and learning to understand one another, only to find out that you might actually have more in common than you think. From Paul's frustrations over his own shortcomings to Angus's sadness about being left behind during the holidays, and Mary trying to seek solace in the last place she remembered being with her son. All these characters have something to offer to one another, and it's a special kind of seasonal movie that I feel like we just don't see enough of anymore. It's a great comedy that can hit some very emotional beats that you feel just as close to these characters by the end that it becomes sort of bittersweet to say goodbye. Easily one of the best surprises of the year, and if it wasn't for word of mouth, I probably would have missed this completely, so yes, please see The Holdovers. With a cinematic history as rich and diverse as Godzilla's, it's very surprising that in the year 2023, they still managed to pull off something new and deliver something so refreshing. What's great about Godzilla Minus One isn't exactly the monster itself, but its ability to create an engaging story around the human characters fighting it. The opening of this movie is already fantastic, but I thought the setting of a post-World War II does so much to preface the state of a broken Japan and its people that it helps create an underdog element that makes you want to root for them the entire time. Kochi is the main character of the story, and as a Japanese soldier who fled his duty during the war, he has so many demons he has to overcome that it adds an interesting layer of a depiction of guilt and PTSD. It's the perfect kind of driving force a movie like this needed, and it made the whole experience way more sadder than it needed to be. I don't know if tears is something you expected in a Godzilla movie, but it can be gut-wrenching, and in the 2 times I saw this in theaters, you could hear some serious ugly cries in there. This movie also works with a smaller budget than previous Godzilla movies, so the appearances the monster does make are always purposeful and used to its fullest potential. It makes the monster seem so much more intimidating, which also leads to any victories feeling more fulfilling. Instead of the battles with Godzilla being the majority of the movie, they're kept as the highlight. It knows how to set the stage very well so that when they do happen, they're incredibly tense and exciting. I don't know if this even needs to be said, but yeah, everything about this movie is far better than anything WB is doing with the character. The only movie that feels sort of close is Shin Godzilla, and that's also because of its unique approach to the story and ability to make the human characters interesting, but none of them have had the heart and persistence like Godzilla Minus One to the point where it becomes very close to being a perfect movie. Very impressive for it to reach the heights that it did.
Are you attracted to him?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so.
Past Lives, directed by Celine Song, was my favorite human relationship to watch unfold. It's about 2 childhood best friends that get separated and reunite years later only to wonder how differently their lives could have played out if they had waited for each other. It's a movie that confronts the idea if something like destiny exists and if all the right decisions in their lives were made. Is them reuniting actually a sign of fate or just a friendly coincidence? It's the kind of questions these characters have to ask themselves as they get to reunite for a week and slowly get to reflect on the growth they both had since then. There's a lot of restraint that has to be shown because Nora has moved along with her life and found a marriage that she's happy in, but it's the revisiting of old memories that kills the both of them inside. It's romance that lies heavily on every stare, hug, and laughter they share. Very reminiscent of something like Richard Linklater's Before trilogy, where you just simply get to watch these characters be incredibly human and share interpersonal stories as they walk around the streets of New York. It's the art of letting go and accepting the course that life has taken, even if you could have been happier. The exact feeling of finally being freed of that what if question. Also, this happens to be Celine Song's directorial debut, so if she's starting here, then some real masterpieces are yet to come.
You were in my son.
What?
Yes, Poor Things, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, is my number one movie of the year, and although there have been some fantastic movies this year, this decision couldn't have been easier. Yorgos Lanthimos is one of my absolute favorite directors working today. Every film he's done feels so bold and done with incredible precision. I might carry a little bias, but hardly do I ever get so excited for a movie and still come out the other side so surprised. That's how much I loved Poor Things. The world this film creates is so unlike anything I've ever seen. I haven't read the novel this film is based on, so I don't know exactly how one-to-one it is, but I loved all the detail invested in it. The color palette this movie has is so amazing. It sets the perfect kind of otherworldly setting for the character of Bella to explore and have that curiosity to find more about everything. The scientist that created her is played by Willem Dafoe, and aside from him having one of the coolest character designs ever, he also spits out like these gas bubbles from time to time. I think all of that detail is really neat along with being hilarious. The humor this movie has is also very literal, which I love. It creates for some great oddball moments that don't come from just Bella but everyone also. Mark Ruffalo plays a schemy playboy and I thought he was really excellent in the role. Definitely steals the show whenever he's on screen. The music this film has is very plucky and ambient, which I think is fitting for a character like Bella. She's learning what it's like to be human for the first time, so although her adventures can seem very sexual or silly, everything here has its purpose. Bella is constantly growing as a character with every location she visits, and as she does, she is slowly able to break free from the mental restraints everyone is trying to keep her in. It makes for such a fun and cathartic watch that I could not get enough, and yes, Emma Stone is so brilliant in the role. Not sure if it's her best role, but definitely her most ambitious and wild. Poor Things is the most unique movie I saw this year, so it also felt very fitting for me to close out the year with it, but that's just on one watch too. I'm sure there will be even more detail to pick up the second time around, but yeah, so deserving of the number one spot for me. Well, that concludes my end of the year list. I appreciate any and all who made it through my list, so thank you. If there were any movies that stood out to you in 2023, I would love to know, so feel free to leave any of that stuff in the comments. I'll also be linking my letterbox in the description, so if you want to keep more up to date with my day-to-day watching, then that's where I'll be. It's been a really great year, but I'm sure 2024 will be even better. I'm really looking forward to the new Dune movie and Challenger, so that'll be fun. But I'm yapping at this point, so again, thank you for watching and I will see you all soon.